if you're not confident in whatever it is that you're saying, I'm not buying it. Nobody's buying it. I'm gonna act like I didn't just break my phone screen. Anyways, welcome to the Basira channel, you all. So we're just gonna get straight into it. You have clicked on this video either because you want to become a fellow, you know somebody who's trying to become a fellow, or you just want to hear what I have to say. Regardless, welcome, and I hope you find this information useful. So I completed the Rutgers Fellowship, specifically in oncology in global regulatory affairs. So everything that I share here is based off of my personal experience of having attended mid-year 4 times. Don't ask me why. 1 as an observer, 2nd as a candidate, and 3rd and 4th as a fellow, where I got the chance to interview candidates. I'm sharing tips that were useful for me, and I hope you find it useful as well. So I've sort of organized this video into 5 different sections. The first section being CV, and you can find the time here. Actually, let me backtrack a bit. So since you don't have time, your time is very valuable, and I know some of you may or may not need guidance in specific areas. I have put the timer or the time next to each of the sections. So if you feel you don't need help or guidance in a certain section, then you could just fast forward to the time of the section that you need help with or guidance with. Okay, so the first one is CV, which we just touched on very briefly. The second one is confidence. The third one is mid-year. I'm going to be looking down a lot because I took my notes, and yeah. The fourth one is about on-site, and the 5th one is prep for virtual interview. We are within unprecedented times. So let's start from the top. CV. Again, I'm not going to dive into it because there needs to be a whole separate video. But what I would say is that when I look at CVs, and I'm going to be talking as if, just imagine that I'm your interviewer, okay? Hypothetically speaking. Okay, so when I look at CVs, format is key. Format, please. If it's all over the place, if it's too busy, too wordy, not consistent, I get overwhelmed, you know, and you have to understand that some people may not even want to read further with the CV, okay? So your CV format has to be clean and consistent. Also, keep it short, you know, 2 to 3 pages would be nice. In my days, we're not even going to talk about what I did, but that was back in the days. I had a very long CV. I think it was like 6 pages. But anyways, these days, nobody has patience anymore. So keep it very short. Hopefully it can be 2 or 3 pages. That would be great. Also, you only want to include relevant experiences. Obviously, you're going for a pharma fellowship, so you want to include rotations from your pharma experience, right? Not to say that if you don't have a pharmaceutical industry rotation, not to say that you can get a fellowship. Yes, you can. Just include relevant experiences, whether it's from your hospital experience, your hospital rotations. It's all about saying what you did and how it's relevant for the position, for the fellowship position, okay? Also, remember, I'm the interviewer. You need to show me that you saved the world on your CV. So don't just put all those generic sentences like, oh, I helped out with this. No, you need to show that you are a leader, led this project, created and developed so presentation. You want to use like action words. You want to use words that showcase your leadership, okay? And not just that, you also want to showcase what impact or what was the purpose of your input. Does that make any sense? So if you created a slide deck, what was it used for? Was it presented to who? To how many people? Were they a bunch of pharmacists? Were they doctors? Were they healthcare professionals? Was it utilized at an ad board? What was the purpose of that presentation? What was the purpose and the impact of your input? That needs to be reflected on your CV, okay? How many people? If it was to 100 people, that's a pretty big deal. 50, that's still a big deal. You want to include that on your CV, okay? So we're not going to talk about CV anymore. We're going to move forward. At this point, I would hope that your CV is either ready or close to being ready, okay? All right. So moving on to confidence. I paused because this should have been the first thing. Sweetie, if you're not confident in whatever it is that you're saying, I'm not buying it. Nobody's buying it. Okay? So you need to be confident. You need to be confident. If I sense any form of insecurity, if I sense any insecurity or lack of confidence, yeah, it's going to be hard. That's going to be a hard one. I'm not buying whatever it is that you're selling. You need to remember that you are a brand. You are selling yourself. Well, sorry. You want at the end of the day, you want the fellowship. So you have to be able to sell yourself and your experiences and your skill sets so you can get the job. So whatever you say has to be said with confidence, okay? Whatever is going to boost up your confidence, you need to surround yourself with that. Or people, whoever it is that makes you just feel like you the best of the best, you need that person around you, okay? Because at the end of the day, when you get the fellowship, you're going to be in rooms with leaders. You're going to be in rooms with senior directors, vice presidents, senior vice presidents. You never know. You could be in the room with the CEO one day. I was. So at the end of the day, you need to have the confidence to speak up, especially at meetings. If somebody's sharing an information that doesn't necessarily align with the program or the project and you're aware of that, you need to have the confidence to speak up. So please, that is first. Your confidence level needs to be up to par, okay? I have a quick story, something that helped me out. My friend Alex, some of you may or may not know Alex. Alex completed the fellowship. He was a year right ahead of me. And I've asked Alex, if I could mention his name in this video. But Alex was a year ahead of me, and I remember running into him at Find, although I've known him for quite some time. And I remember he told myself and another person, he was like, listen, these fellows you see walking around here, they don't have two heads. You don't have two heads. And so if they can do it, you can do it too. Okay? And I don't know what it was about that it just boosted. Is that even a word? My confidence level just went up. I was like, oh, I can do this. Okay. So at the end of the day, you are a pharmacy student. I am assuming either you're a pharmacist or you're in your final year of pharmacy school. Whatever it is that you did to pass those classes, you need to do it too right now in getting this fellowship. Okay. You've gotten this far. Nobody else helped you. Okay. Yes, you have your support group, but you've gotten this far. So if you can get this far, you can get the fellowship, okay? Your confidence level needs to be up to par. You can do it. You can do it. Yes. Listen, I only speak right now like this because I've gone through the process. But the Basarats back then, oh God. But we thank God for people like Alex. So moving on, what else do I have to say? Just surround yourself with your whole support group that's going to boost up your confidence level. All right. So now moving on to mid-year, you want to be organized. That's the first thing. You want to be organized. Now, at this stage, it is my hope that in terms of scheduling, PPS, and all of that, you've gotten that situated. I can't speak to that because obviously we're in this whole virtual digital system where nothing is happening in person. I'm assuming that all your interviews are most likely going to be virtual. So I cannot speak to the PPS and all that scheduling and how that's going to work. I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is how you can prepare for the content of your interview for mid-year, okay? So one, you have to be organized. I said that already. You need to be organized. Even with scheduling, you still need to make sure that you don't book yourself back to back. You want to make sure that you have some time in between, whichever way they're going to set it up. Even if you're working with different companies, I'm sure there may be a time where a company wants to interview you on the same day as another company. Just make sure that you space it out. Make sure that you have enough time, okay? And it's my assumption that these mid-year interviews are still going to be, pretty short, like 30 minutes here and there. For me, it was rounds of 20 minutes to 30 minutes each. And at the end of each round, you move on, whether you're going to move on to the next round. I don't know if that's how it's going to be since everything is now virtual. But what I can say, we can still talk to points that you need to know, regardless of whether it's virtual or live. One of them is, tell me about yourself. That's a very easy question. once you open your mouth, within the first minute, I know whether I'm going to pass you on to the next round or not. Okay? And so you need to be extremely careful as to what you're saying. Feel free, be yourself. Let them see your personality. Let your personality shine. At the end of the day, you are unique. You are you. What you have to offer, I don't have to offer it. What I have to offer, you don't have to offer. Okay? So you have to own yourself. You have to own your story. So when it comes to tell me about yourself, you need to think about what it is you want them to remember you for by the end. For me, I want them to, by the time you were done talking with me, or by the time I was done with my tell me about myself, you would know where I'm from. You would know my story as to why I went into pharmacy in the first place, why I'm interested in pharma. You would know why I am in front of you, okay? And you also want to be sweet and concise with your tell me about yourself. I know somebody once told me that, it should be like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. By the time I practiced that, I realized that was too long. So feel free, at some point you may have to change your tell me about yourself a couple of times, just because some people, even from their facial expression, you would know if you're boring them out. So that's another thing. Emotional intelligence is key. You need to be able to read somebody's facial expression. Are they really feeling you? Are they not? I have had to change my tell me about myself on the spot a couple of times. Either I start from the middle, from the beginning, So whichever way you practice, just make sure that you're hitting the relevant points. Okay? Okay. So after you've nailed your tell me about yourself, there are 3 things that I also believe you should be ready to explain. And those 3 are: why pharma, why the company, why that position. And it could be in any order. Some people may even ask you why pharmacy. And when I say pharma, you guys are aware that I'm talking about the pharmaceutical industry, okay? As opposed to you going to be a traditional pharmacist, why are you trying to go into the pharmaceutical industry? Okay, so you should have your story straight. Is it because you want to help impact a broader population of patients? Have your story straight. Why the company, or why the position? Of course, you want to look at the company's values and visions and whatnot. But at the same time, you want to understand, what does this company have to offer when it comes to, let's say, regulatory affairs? What does this company have to offer that this other company does not have to offer? You need to understand those differences. And when you go to the company, you feel free to talk about that. I recognize that you all offer this within your program, and it's quite important to me because I want to be able to get X, Y, and Z experiences. So feel free to talk about that. And then also, why the position? Only you can answer that question. I can answer that question for you. Why do you want to go into regulatory affairs or medical affairs or clinical development, whatever it is? Why do you want to go into it? Is it a particular rotation that you did that sort of, piqued your interest? Is it a presentation that you worked on, or a project that you worked on, or some research that also sparked your interest in that particular position? Whatever it is, get your story straight. I know for me, I did a regulatory rotation, and that sort of sparked my interest, and that's why I went into regulatory. Granted, I'm actually no longer in regulatory, but that's a whole different story. So whatever your story is, it, and feel free to share it. Okay? Now, next, we're still on the topic of mid-year. Behavioral questions. Those are the fun ones, and I laugh because, for me personally, I'm not really a fan of behavioral questions, but it's what it is. It's part of the process. So you need to have your behavioral questions and have your answers ready. So what I typically advise students, and what I do is I try to go through as many behavioral questions as I can. If you Google behavioral interview questions, they would come up so just go through them, maybe 50 if you have time, or maybe 50 is too much. But for me, I was just extra. I went through a lot, and I always had at least 2 to 3 answers for each response. Okay. And what you'll find out is that By the time you keep practicing, you may get to that interview and they may not ask you the exact same question that was within the bunch of questions that you practice. By the end of the day, you will find yourself having like a reservoir of responses. And so even though the question was worded this way, you have like a billion of responses and stories to pull from. Now, where are you pulling your responses from? You're pulling them from your rotations. When you worked on a project with that preceptor, when you were in a group and you had to work on that presentation, or when you served as the president or the secretary of some organization and you all had to like host an event. What did you do? These are the times where you need to pull from those experiences of yours, or even feel free to pull from experiences that weren't so great. How did you resolve the situation? Okay, it's going to be a lot of tell me about a time where you ran into a conflict with a team member and what did you do? So I don't have to go into all of that, but make sure that you have your stories ready. Okay, and also explain what it is that you did. What it is that you did and what was the impact of what you did. Remember your STAR method, and I forget what STAR stands for, but I'm going to have it on the screen. I think it's situation, task, action, and results. Something like that, but I'm going to have it on the screen. So try to answer the questions in the form of the STAR method so that you're not going to be rambling and going all over the place like I tend to do sometimes. Of course, you want to also be prepared for like the generic questions like what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What's your biggest accomplishment? What would your manager say about you? If I asked about you from your team members, how would they describe you? What's one word you can use to describe yourselves? So, my dear, Google is your best friend. So just Google interview questions, behavioral questions, STAR method, everything is going to come up, okay? Another thing that I like to advise students, and I used to advise students to do this for on-site. Granted, again, the whole system with the virtual interviews is going to be different. I'm not sure if there's even going to be too much of a difference between your mid-year interviews as well as your on-site virtual interviews. I'm not sure. Again, my mid-year was live, so I can only speak to what I know. When things were live, I would recommend for students to have like a folder that pretty much has most of your top-notch work. When I say top-notch, something that you're really proud about, like this presentation you did, a flyer that you created, whatever it is, a database that you can print out. Can you print out a database? Anyways, ignore that. But whatever it is that you've worked on that you're proud of, just put it all into that folder. Okay? Now, since everything is virtual now, and that's why I'm talking about this at mid-year and not just at the on-site portion, but I would also refer back to it, is I'm not sure if they're going to maybe narrow down the interviews. You know more than I do, but it's nice to have it handy. Maybe you talk about it, because I believe in not just telling, I believe in showing. If you're gonna say, oh, I did this, and I did that, if you can show them, you already have points in my book. Okay, so since your mid-year is going to be virtual, there's no reason why you can't have like a digital portfolio. It's even easier. You can quickly share your screen and show them. Now, I'm not saying that this is anything required. It's definitely not. This is just something that you can just do to stand out and be extra. I'm extra. So you can have this both for your mid-year interviews as well as for your on-site interviews. Again, I used to advise students to have this for on-site because at mid-year, nobody really has too much time. But at the same time, since your mid-year is going to be virtual, so why can't you show something if you have it? So feel free to say, I actually have this presentation that I'm talking about, especially if your interviewer seems to be very interested. So feel free to say that you have it, and if they have time and they would like to see, you can just share your screen, okay? I don't think I mentioned this, but it's all about not just what you know, it's also about how you present yourself. You are a brand. How do you carry yourself? I need to see your personality. At the end of the day, who wants to work with somebody who has no personality? Granted, not everybody interviews just based off of that, okay? I'm just sharing what I know, but feel free to be yourself. You don't need to be a robot. I always tell people I'm not saying you shouldn't take your interview serious. Definitely take it serious, but at the same time, don't take it too serious to the extent that you forget about yourself. No, I need to see you. I need to know you, okay? So feel free to be personable and just let me see your bubbly personality come through. And if it's not bubbly, it don't matter. I just want to see your personality shine through you, okay? All right. So, okay. Ooh, I forgot to mention, at the end of the interview, or before your interview ends, your mid-year interview, and I'm going to mention this again for the on-site, make sure that you ask for their email addresses. If you don't already have their email address, please make sure you ask for their email address, because you want to send your thank you letters. I'm old school. I used to write out the letters, like we all did at mid-year. So I'll write out the thank you cards and all of that. But since you don't have that, you can't do that since everything is virtual, you're going to be sending emails, thank you emails. And for me, I don't know about anybody else, I like to do it within 24 hours. Matter of fact, all of the on-sites that I've done now, even for permanent jobs, I try to, as soon as the interview is done and I get home, that's what I'm doing. I'm writing my emails. Now you don't have to travel anywhere. As soon as you close your laptop and you finish that interview, give yourself some break or whatnot. Just get into it. Just write your thank you letter. Just don't be too generic. Make sure that you at least hit some points as to what you all talked about during your conversation and how it's made an impact on you and how you are super excited about, moving on with the company, hopefully. Now, that reminds me, and I didn't talk about this, your letter of intent. I'm not sure how the system is going to, I'm not sure how this whole virtual interview is going to work, if you're still going to have that whole process where you have to go upload your letter of intent as well as your CV. But for your letter of intent, I don't need to go into it. Just similar to what I said about the CV, make sure that it's also brief. 3 paragraphs. I think the first one is your intro. The intro. The second one talks about why you are a good candidate for that role, and then the third one we then sort of wrap up your letter of intent, where you then specify the companies that you're still interested in interviewing in. For me, I tried to list them in alphabetical order. And I said that, I mentioned that I was listing them in alphabetical order, because at the end of the day, you don't want to just include, company A and then company B sees that, oh, you listed company A the first, and they now think that, oh, maybe she's interested or he's interested in company A more than he is in company B. So I like to list them in alphabetical order. So I'm not going to go into too much details with letter of intent. It's my hope that by now your letter of intent is set. Okay? Also, make sure you close the interview. I don't know if you know what that means. Close the interview. What do I mean by that? At the end of the interview, once it's wrapping up, you're gathering your stuff. You're not gathering your stuff. Everything is virtual. But you want to just thank them. Like, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to meet with each one of you. I just want to re-emphasize my interest in this role. I'm super excited about the opportunity to work with X, Y, and Z. Just re-emphasize why you're interested and just thank them. Thank them. Smile. Now, mid-year is over. And guess what? You got on-site.